Morning gang, Sean here from Gasleg. Hope you're doing well. The sun is shining, it's all red hot out there. We're recording this on Monday the 12th of August, so it's going to be an absolute scorcher today. So I got in double early to get some content done for you. So I just want to share with something that we've done on Saturday. I had an old pal ring me up. I was down with the family down the beach watching the sunrise down in Broadstairs on Saturday morning. Was having a bit of breakfast together, and an old pal rang me up in a bit of a desperate state. Don't usually work the weekends, but okay, no worries, we'll come out. He's got a water leak that he couldn't stop. He had a friend of his come round, bit of a DIYer, but I just want to share some bits with you because I've never seen this before. So here we are. So he had a tee up in the ceiling. So he's had a bathroom done, loads of plastic pipe work, but it's a bit of original pipe work. The house is around 50 years old, clearly a lot older than me as well. So they had what we call pinholes. So whether it's a bit of flux, whether it's a bit of damaged pipe, whether it's a bit of abrasion in the pipes as well. So not so much on the cold water side, this is on cold mains. But on a heating system, if you've got bits that are flying around and they can just sort of hit, if you've got a little dent in the pipe, it can hit the dent, the little bits and pieces, and you get the water erosion as well as the little bits of solids as well flying around. And that can create pinholes. But anyway, so I've never seen this before. So it's like this little saddle. So in fairness, this was tight against the floorboards. You had a waste pipe there, you had a hot pipe there, you had plastic pipe right next to it. The whole thing was difficult. It was doing it up in the ceiling as well in the kitchen, and it was really hard. It was, I'll be honest, it was a bit of a difficult job, but we sorted it out, done and dusted. So this little DIY friend's come along. So you've got this little piece here. Now it looks like a Yorkshire because that little ridge, that looks like it's pre-filled with solder. So it looks like it's just a little cap that goes on. So what you do is you clean the pipe with a bit of wire wool, flux it up, stick that on over the hole, and then you'll heat it up and solder it. So I think the solder thing was, I think it was downwards possibly, or slightly forwards. I think it was slightly forward, so looking at it, I think the pipe was sort of maybe about like that. So when he's heating it up, the plastic pipe was starting to melt for the waste for the shower. The floorboards were all black and charred. So the whole thing's getting a little bit on the sexy side. So I think he done the right thing by just sort of abandoning ship. Some people will just carry on regardless, and then you'll have loads of other crap that's going on. So so if you can see carefully there on the strap, I don't know if it's going to focus in that well. There looks like there's a little gap there when it hasn't taken. They've dropped a bit of solder on, but potentially there was a bit of cold water still in the pipe, taking the heat away, and it hasn't run properly. And this little bit of solder dropped on. Clearly, it's not hot enough because it's still in its sort of soldery sort of off the roll shape. So it's sort of stuck. I'll give this a little rub up with a bit of wire wool just to show you there, but I've never seen one, never used one. I suppose it's got its place, but I've got no intention on ever buying them. Another little thing to show you here is this stuff here. This here looks like tile adhesive. So when he's had the bathroom done up a couple of years ago upstairs, they dropped tile adhesive onto the copper. Now that contains an acid, and that will erode through with time. It'll roll through the copper. So there we are. But the biggest thing is when it was in this tee, so I cut the whole tee out just to make life easier. I went, right, get it into, I was going to throw it in the bag, bent it, and then that is what usually you'd see sort of around that sort of 10 millish, whatever it is, a solder that's run around there, a treat, which is absolutely cracking and perfect. I don't stop focusing in properly. But then on the other side, it's gone down to an absolute whisker. And that's been in 50 years, and that wasn't the leak. So it was just that little bit that was holding, I'll get the thing in. It was just like that little bit that was, let's line it up properly. So it's that little bit there. So it was literally just that little bit there holding back the water for the last 50 years. And that's cold mains as well. So it's done pretty well. Typically, that is, it's not been cleaned up properly. You can see the flux was a bit shy there coming round. a bit better around this side. So it probably wasn't fluxed up properly and the solder hasn't run inside the fitting, and it's held on fantastic, awesome, didn't cause any problems. But this is what happens when you're not sort of thorough enough. And there's various, we use little tiny paint brushes and just go over the joint, push them in, and I'll do a video on soldering later on, but I just thought I'd do a quick one here and just show you this little fitting before I throw it in the bin. So I've never used one of these little caps. It should have obviously run itself, but clearly there's probably still water in the pipe, and that's why it hasn't run properly. So typically if you get one pinhole in a pipe, if it's through a bit of old pipe with problems, I've seen it where we've had 5 or 6 holes in a couple of meters. So there was actually a children's nursery over in North London, Welwyn Garden City way up there, we was working in, and we was called out there. There was a piece of pipe in the ceiling, and we go out, found a problem, cut it out because it was difficult access, got it repaired, and then within a couple of months called back again, another leak in the ceiling, another section of pipe. But water erosion is a big thing. So any deformities in the pipe, like this here, then this wasn't me. I don't know if you can see it because it's trying to focus. You see that there? There's like a little ridge. So somebody, which somebody's got a pipe slice on that, the rotary cutters, and put that on and started to cut that pipe. You can see that little deformity there. And then they've abandoned ship. Now that wasn't me. So they've abandoned ship on that. Now what that does on the inside, can't tell, a little telescope, that will create a tiny little ridge. And then as the water passes through, it's abrasive. Remember, they cut stone with high pressure water. So on soft copper, with time that passes through, that will start eroding it away, and then we'll get a little tiny hole. And that's then the what we sometimes call as pinpricks, which is tiny little holes, little tiny jets of water that comes out. But fortunately, this was on the first floor, so the water staining was up on the ceiling, which isn't fortunate for the damage, but it's fortunate because it was under the house. That could be leaking for absolutely yonkos, full of damp, full of mould, smells, full of insects because they're coming in for the water as they would, all the spiders and the pea bugs and Christ knows what else. And you can then create, and if it's under the house and you've got a suspended floor with no airflow, and then that is a classic recipe for dry rot. So I know a little bit about dry rot as well. So it can only take 3 months, minimum 3 months for dry rot to set in. And if anyone knows anything about dry rot, it's like house cancer. It just spreads, the little spores come out, it infects the wood of the timber structures. It can pass through brick too once it's established to find some new timber to sort of infect and drag out all the moisture. So, and then it's completely useless. It just turns to dust. You look at a piece of timber, if I ever come across it, I'll do a video on it, but it just turns to dust. It looks like a piece of timber, but literally you're just doing that on a bit of 4x2, 8x2, whatever else. So, so yeah, only takes 3 months, a little 3 months for that. So super. I hope you found it a little bit interesting. Yeah, a little bit of copper pipe. So I'll do another one later on how to solder. But there we are. Okay, guys, you take care. Wish you all the best. Thank you. Bye.